you know, there were ways that were happening in Central America, and it was mostly in Mexico and Guatemala, you know, where in Mexico was the, is a kingdom, virreinato they call it, the ones that were representing the reign, the kingdom of Spain. And then in Guatemala, they had the Capitanía General. The Capitanía General is where the generals were there to keep us in order. But the only people that had all kinds of benefits were the people that were sent by Spain, from Spain. The ones that were born the mother and the father were Spaniards, didn't have the same rights as the ones that came from Spain. So it was, they were called the criollos. And they got angry because they wanted. Why? Because they were born there. It's a difference. You know, this belongs to us. And so that's what they did, but they told us that all of us participated. And that's why we have a lot of, you know, the inequality comes from all those lies. So we know them, and we're discussing them at the university level. But people come with paper and pencil, and we're doing all this that you're doing here. And we're putting it online, and we're telling people in other parts of the country, get on with this. They don't want us to know, but we have to know what we need to know. And a university is a universe. And your universe is very small. It's like horses with these blinders on the sides. You know why they put those things on the horses? You are from this area. Why? Why do they put these things? You know, horses have these things when they are taken out. Why?
So they don't get distracted by
They don't get distracted and they follow the road that is given to them. And so, you know, like this, when you're in a university and it's not being used, the library and all the resources that are here, your teachers, you're not asking of your teachers to work with you and do, you know, research and discussions. These kinds of things is what you are all about as students. And you have to demand that. And so for us, in our country, we have a state university, the only one, and then they have different, you know, programs around the country. But we demand, that is patrimony, we call it. That is our heritage that belongs to us, and we got to make it work. And, you know, people have died demanding for the resources, for having whatever services is needed, you know. And the purpose is that we have to know. Knowledge is very important. What's the difference between believing and knowing? What's the difference? If I, what, you. What's the difference between believing and knowing? If you say, I believe, what's the difference between I believe, you saying that, and saying, I know?
Fact and opinion. It's like it's a fact or it's an opinion.
What do you think? Anybody that heard him? You agree? What's the difference between believing and knowing? When you say, I believe this, and you say, I know this, what's the difference?
One has to do with the head knowledge. You know it's like in your head. You believe it's in your heart. It's more meaningful.
It could be, but I tell you one thing. Look at this. I don't believe in God, but I know God. You see the difference? The knowledge is a certainty. That doesn't mean that you might be correct, but it's your certainty. The believing, it can be something that, you know, you don't have a justification for. So the reason I am relating this to you is because still we were talking about how what she was telling us, what she was sharing with us, how is it related to you, to your future, to this country, to how we are living today, to what's happening in Libya? How is it related to the G20, what she was telling us? You see, this is what you go to school for, not to get an A. It's better to flunk but no, than to get an A and not no. You know? So, how is it? How is that related? What she was telling us to the Republican convention, to the chair. How is it? Please help me. How is it related to the UN? This is very important. You know, a lot of people say that the UN is no good. In general, it's no good. Because the UN is the organization of the United Nations. So all the countries, 193 countries, because they exclude Palestine, and I always say 194 because I see Palestine as a nation. So I include it. I don't care what the UN says. That is just a frame of reference, you know. For me, good, do better work, you know. And feminists, we are there at the UN demanding the things for everybody and for the future generations. But, so, the UN is not good because the nations that form it is not good. Because they have created the same thing that she's talking about, they created in their own way. For example, the Security Council doesn't really represent all the peoples of the world. It's few nations that are there and they have veto power. That's not one vote, you know, for every nation and then all of us decide. No, it's not. So we are not only forcing and working to reform the United Nations, but to refund it, to, you know, make it again a new foundation for the United Nations. That's part of what we are working on. But how is it related? See, I am asking you, how is that related to all these things? Look, do you know that whenever you haven't had a thought, somebody could predict what you're going to think? Not that it's going to guess it. It's not a kind of magic. But you know, we can predict how a person or how a nation is going to behave, no? Why? Why? Because we have seen their trend. We have seen their history. We should have been able to know that with the situation that happened in Libya, the Marines will go, or not. And we should have been able to know that then about at least 9 nations over there are burning flags, or not. You see, there is a paradigm. There is a way of thinking. And what is our paradigm? What is our paradigm? The paradigm of the criollos in my country was, why should it be that because they were born in Spain, they had the rights over here and we don't? You know, and they broke that paradigm. And they had a revolutionary process, an independence movement, they call it, and we have independence now. But the people, we are not independent. We are very dependent. Why? Because there is a frame of reference. Where did that frame of reference come from? What is that name that we give to this paradigm that we have right now, and where was it that it was, you know, kind of created? Where? You see, when we go to university, we go there to be free thinkers. Free thinkers, to be able to learn, to analyze, and to talk with others and come to certain conclusions. So worldwide, we have a name for this paradigm. Even here in the US, the people who are scientists, people who are your professors, they have a name for the paradigm that you have. That is creating your frame of reference. What is the name of that paradigm? And then sometimes people get upset when we say it, but you know, that's the paradigm. And there was a time when it came globalized. I'm not talking about globalization as you know it recently. I'm talking about the paradigm that became globalized worldwide in modern times. In modern times, I'm not talking about this time. This is not modern times. I'm talking, you know, historically, there was an eruption in the world that gave the possibility for a certain way of thinking to go all over. Help me here.
Is it colonialism, like people from Europe and all over the world?
It has to do with that. Has to do with that. Go further. See, I hope that you don't remember me when I leave, but I hope that you remember when I am working with you, that you from there will know how to see the wide world that we have and how small we make it because we keep within the paradigm. And it has to do with that. So you're good, but go deeper. Ay, Dios mío. Remember how we, even there are attacks on nations to defend what? Western civilization, no? The Western way of life. That's the paradigm.